What is going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 16 of Let's Be Frank with your host, your friendly neighborhood bull, Frank Mattis, brought to you by the Old City Sports Network. And we got a lot on the docket today. Let me tell you, Saquon Barkley breaks records and becomes the front runner for MVP as the Eagles dominate the LA Rams in Tinseltown. Mitch Mania strikes again in overtime, and the Chickens come home to roost at the Wells Fargo Center as the Sixers go 3-13. So let's get started with the Eagles. And he does it again, folks. The great and powerful Saquon Barkley. I mean, what is there to say at this point? He has a record breaking night with 26 carries, 255 yards rushing, and 2 touchdowns. He shatters Shady McCoy's record of 217 in 2013 and that infamous or famous, I should say, on and when it comes to the Eagles, it's probably more infamous for the Lions perspective, but definitely a great game for us in 2013 in that big snow game. Saquon Barkley shatters the rushing record for the most rushing yards in a single season game for the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, this guy is incredible, man. He's been a game changer for this team, and he's made a lot of lives easier. Let me tell you. I mean, Jalen Hurts doesn't have to play, Superman on every single play. When you got a guy like Saquon Barkley who will gash you on first down and open up the playbook and give you that latitude to do whatever you want offensively, it's going to be a problem for teams to stop. So I'm just in awe of what I see on a daily basis, or in terms of a game by game basis. I mean, the guy just, when you think you've seen the best of Saquon Barkley, he comes out and has, an even better. It's remarkable stuff. He, to me, right now is the MVP of the NFL. What he's been able to do for this Eagles team, which is already loaded and talented, to take him to the next level, to be the closer late in games. And when you factor in the playoffs and you factor in Saquon and that offensive line breathing down your neck in the fourth quarter, you're not going to stop it. You're just not. And if you load up the box and you have a guy like Jalen Hurts is going to beat you with both his feet and his arm, and he's going to, see the field and act accordingly. And that is a scary thing for teams to deal with. I mean, the guy has been a game changer for this team, and he was already one of the best running backs in the NFL behind a a a below average offensive line minus their left tackle and Andrew Thomas with the New York Giants. But when you factor in what you do with and what he can do with an Eagles offensive line like they have now, I mean, we've seen the last 2 years with guys who are not on his level, guys like Miles Sanders, who has just completely fallen off the face of the earth without that Eagles offensive line, what he was able to do. Guys like DeAndre Swift, who are better and are solid running backs, but nobody comes even close in the last couple of years to Saquon Barkley and what he's been able to do with this for this team. And he's also the most complete running back in all football. He can obviously run it down your throat. He's obviously a home run hitter. And when you factor in that beautiful blend of physicality and speed, it's really tough to stop. And when you factor in his ability to catch the ball, I mean, the guy is a dual threat running back. I mean, he's probably the most complete running back I've seen since LaDainian Tomlinson. And then, when you factor in that perfect marriage of Saquon Barkley with that Eagles offensive line, because I think that sometimes gets lost in all this. Somebody who played offensive line in high school, I obviously see what this Eagles offensive line has been able to do and what it's been able to produce for someone like Saquon. I mean, it's like the perfect combination. I mean, you name any combination you want. For me, it's like grilled cheese and tomato soup. That Eagles O line and Saquon Barkley. It's really remarkable seeing what these guys have been able to do together. It's the perfect marriage, and it's unstoppable. Throughout the game, it just on first down when you see Saquon get 8-9 yards and open up the playbook and then just keep drives going. Um, it's really tough to beat. And then late in games, you have that guy, to close out the last night in emphatic fashion, and he shatters the single season record with the Philadelphia Eagles at 255, 302 yards total. The guys, when you think you've seen it all with Saquon, he has a game like that. And to me, he's my MVP. I mean, what he's been able to do is incredible. And that offensive line deserves credit as well. This offensive line is elite. This offensive line I mean, you saw the PFF grades. I mean, I don't always look at it as the end all be all, but I do think I think what PFF does do a good job with in terms of grades because they had, I think, Kenyon Mitchell at like in the 30s. They do a good job of grading offensive linemen, and everybody with the exception of Cam Jurgens, which is kind of shocking, uh, or not really when you think about it. You have an elite left guard in Landon Dickerson, who, by the way, I think people kind of sleep on because his team is so stacked, arguably the most stacked team in the NFL. Landon Dickerson is a fucking badass. Excuse my language, but that dude mauls people, and he went from going from a Pro Bowl level player to an All Pro level player. That guy is throwing dudes around, open up holes. Mekhi Becton, what a great story he's been. I mean, he was a complete bust with the New York Jets. He could have taken more money to play elsewhere, but he decided to resurrect his career and to be under the tutelage of the best offensive line coach in all of football, and that is Jeff Stoutland. I mean, what he's been able to do, obviously paved the lane. Johnson doing his thing, Cam Jurgens doing his thing. Mailata, with the exception of getting blown up by Jarrett Verse on that one play, played very well and does his thing and opens up holes. Um, this offensive line is elite, and this offensive line is very much also responsible for what Saquon Barkley's been able to do. Saquon Barkley would have been able to produce at a high level, but when you have that offensive line in front of you, you're going to produce at an MVP level. You go from a Pro Bowl player to not just an All Pro player to an MVP. It's really amazing to see this marriage come together and what they've been able to do. I mean, just incredible stuff. Landon Dickerson, there's so many guys I mean, he's an elite player, and the Eagles have like 5 or 7 of them, and he's one of them, and people kind of sleep on him a bit. But I just want to make it known that this guy is playing at an all pro level, and he is nasty player, and maybe it's because I played left guard specifically and he plays left guard. Um, just to watch him play, it's a pleasure seeing him just maul people, and it's a pleasure seeing this offensive line maul people. Somebody who played O line, I love watching the Eagles play, and when you see what they do for a guy like Barkley, who's one of the best running backs of football, to elevate level, it's incredible stuff. Um, the Saquon Barkley just never ceases to amaze us Eagles fans. Just a tremendous night. Jalen Hurts, I thought he didn't really have to do much because it was a Saquon Barkley show. He wanted all the shine in Tinseltown, but Jalen Hurts did some nice things in this game. I mean, his connection with AJ Brown was on point. That touchdown pass was a thing of beauty, right on the money. AJ Brown just completely unstoppable again. I mean, Hurts, Barkley, Brown. I mean, is there a better triplet in the NFL? I don't think that there is. I mean, that's frightening. And then you also factor in you still have Devontae Smith. You have guys like Dallas Goedert. When they're healthy, they obviously want their pound of flesh and they want to contribute as well. But Hurts, Barkley, Brown. I mean, that is just a frightening triplet to try to stop. And AJ or Hurts, didn't have to throw all up and down the field, but when he needed to make plays, he relied on his tried and true, and that is AJ Brown, always open, uh, and rightfully so. I mean, the guy's incredible. And I mean, when you look at his numbers, 6 catches, 109 yards, and a touchdown, you would think he was the star of the show, but Saquon Barkley was really the star of the show. But he did some really nice things, and AJ and Hurts have a really special connection, one of the better connections in the NFL. And with him, and with AJ, Hurts, and Barkley, I mean that is a three-headed monster that's going to be really hard to stop. and they're humming. And Jalen Hurts is playing mistake-free football. He's seeing the field a lot better. He doesn't have to do a ton with Barkley, doing the things that he's doing. So when he has to make plays, and if they want to load up the box, fine. Jalen Hurts is going to find AJ Brown or find other guys, or take off with his legs. When you take the pressure off of that guy, and if he needs to make a play, and he's, you're kind of preserving him in a lot of ways long term. When you feed Saquon Barkley the way you're feeding him, you're preserving him to to potentially make plays in bigger games down the line. It's almost kind of like the Eagles in 2022. If you look at those two playoff games, I mean, Jalen Hurts, specifically against the Giants and the 49ers, he really didn't have to do all that much. And, he was kind of fresh in that Super Bowl. And it was just like, when he had to make a play, he did it. And they kind of saved him in a lot of ways when you think about it, whether it was intentional or not, to go out there and have the Super Bowl so I feel like that's a huge benefit of having Saquon Barkley is to preserve a guy like Jalen Hurts. So that's pretty much my takeaways on the offense. Kenny Gainwell had some nice runs. You know, he obviously, to me, is a guy that, he's not going to get the bulk of the carries with Barkley, but people forget he's a good player, and he's a versatile player as well, and he's got a lot of juice, and he's got a lot of burst, and behind that offensive line, anything is possible. I'd be curious to see what I would do behind that offensive line. And I'm a washed 31-year-old. It's just that O line does wonders for you. But Kenny Gainwell's a guy who I've always liked, and I think a lot of people weren't necessarily the biggest fans of, but I like his versatility. I like his burst, and you saw that last night. So that's the offense. Defense, another great performance. I mean, the defense just proves that they're for real on a weekly basis. It started off shaky early on, but they're resilient, man. That they were getting absolutely gashed on the opening drive, and then Isaiah Rodgers gets the fumble, and Dean recovers. So they obviously were resilient on that drive, and then the Rams on the next drive that they got scored a touchdown. So you're thinking, okay, well, you take out that fumble by Rodgers, and that this Eagles defense was in trouble, but they settled in. They attacked the weakness of the Rams, which was their two left tackles, and the rest was history. Once they did that, this game was pretty much over. I mean, just a tremendous job. 5 sacks. Milt Williams, another underrated player on the team, had a big game. Josh Sweat doing Josh Sweat things. Uh, you know, um, Nakobe Dean, man, what a freight train when it comes to blitzing. I mean, that guy is just a nightmare to try to stop on the blitz. I mean, he's really good there. There's so many options with this defense. This defense is playing on all, playing well on all levels, and they're playing complementary defense. There's not, one glaring hole. Even the pass rush is really starting to come alive to go along with your linebacker play and your secondary play. Just, when you get complete defense like that, and you attack the weaknesses of the offense, you're going to do big things, and that's what this Eagles defense did. They have a very, like, their pass rush has been streaky, and it's obviously going to be impacted with Brandon Graham, who I will get to in great detail, because I have a lot to say about his career and his contributions to this organization and city. But I've noticed that this is an Eagles pass rush. Once they see a guy or a couple guys who are the weakness, they attack, and they're very opportunistic, and once they see a weakness, they just attack it, and that's what you like to see. So credit to the Eagles pass rush for getting 5 sacks, and so yeah, I mean, it was a dominant win overall. You know, Obviously, it was a great night for Barkley, and another reminder that the Eagles are for real. And a lot of people have been talking about the Detroit Lions being the best team in the NFL, and I think you could make an argument for that. But sure about that? You sure about that? In the long haul with this Eagles team and the way that they're playing both offensively and defensively, I mean, they might have something to say about it. And it looks like all signs are pointing towards an Eagles Lions NFC Championship game, which would be incredible. Two freight trains going at it, two juggernauts going at it, and I like our chances. I think that this Eagles team is proving that they're one of the better teams in the NFL. They are absolutely a Super Bowl contender, and it's going to be interesting to see how the season shakes out. Because with the Commanders losing in devastating fashion against the Cowboys, I mean they're definitely coming down to earth. Um, a bit. Jaden Daniels has not looked as sharp as he did early on, and then the New York Giants. I mean, what is there to say at this point? I mean, I don't want to throw any more shade at that organization. They're going through too much right now. So um, I'll let them be, so to speak. And then the Cowboys, who, it's too little too late for them, and they're only going to ruin their draft stock because they're going to definitely win on Thanksgiving against the Giants. The Giants are just a complete joke. But, the Cowboys are you know, already behind the 8 ball and are a team that is not gonna make the playoffs, but they're probably gonna win some games coming down the stretch, which will ruin their draft stock, so that's kinda good. So we're in firm control of this division, and we're clearly one of the better teams in the NFC, and, I'm very curious to see what an Eagles-Lions matchup is how that's going to shake out because I think the Eagles to me are from a talent perspective maybe not in terms of consistency. They're the best roster, not just in the NFC but in the NFL. I mean, when Landon Dickerson's like your seventh, eighth best player, he could be if he played on the Patriots, he'd be their best player. Like he's that good. Um, like we have like 7 all-pro caliber players on our team. Like that's scary. Like not pro bowlers, all pro players, right? Barkley, AJ, um, Landon, uh, Lane, right? So he's there. So Landon, Lane, AJ, and Barkley. Jalen Carter's one of them. You could argue Kenyon Mitchell, Zach Bond, right? Maybe not Kenyon. I mean, but then again, he's been shutting down everybody, but definitely Zach Bond. You could throw Kenyon in there. He's playing at a high level. I mean, Josh Sweat, I wouldn't say is an All Pro, but is a Pro Bowl level player. CJ GJ had a really nice game last night. He had a really nice tackle on a third down play. So he's playing a lot better. Credit to him. Breed Blankenship's a solid player. Like those are borderline Pro Bowl caliber players. I mean, like you could make an argument the Eagles have 7 All Pro players from Barkley, AJ, um, Lane, Landon, um, Mylod. I mean, he's been hurt, so he's probably not going to be one. But Zach Bond, Jalen Carter, and then Kenyon. I mean that's a stacked team. So I think that this team, to me, is the most talented team in the NFL, and they're all playing at a high level now. So be careful what you wish for in anointing the Detroit Lions. And I, nothing but respect for how they built that organization. I mean, they were one of the worst organizations for the majority of my lifetime. And to see it turn around, it is a good story. But I feel like that good story is going to come to an end when they play the Eagles. I think the Eagles have the most talented team, and their talent is producing. So that's a scary combination. So just keep that in mind as you anoint the Detroit Lions, who again deserve credit, but the Eagles have something to say about who the best team in the NFL is potentially. So a lot of good things from last night. Unfortunately, we did get word that Brandon Graham tore his triceps, and his season will come to an end, and most likely his career will come to an end. And I mean, where do I begin with this guy? When you talk about BG, he's one of the core 4 of not just the Eagles Super Bowl winning team, but the Super Bowl team that went 2 years ago. Um, you obviously have BG, you have Fletcher Cox, Jason Kelsey, and Lane Johnson. Those are your core 4. And when you look at the core 4, obviously Jason Kelsey is going to be a Hall of Famer. Lane Johnson, who still has a lot left in the tank. given his athletic ability and how he played the game. He's going to get in the Hall of Fame. Fletcher Cox is in the conversation for the Hall of Fame. It's going to be really close. You know, if he wanted if he wanted Defensive Player of the Year, he'd absolutely get in. He was only in a first team All Pro once, but I think his best argument is Fletcher Cox overall was the best player on that Eagles Super Bowl winning team. So I think that could possibly get him over the top, but he's in the conversation. But the other guy is Brandon Graham, and Brandon Graham's not going to get into the NFL Hall of Fame. He doesn't have the numbers and he doesn't have the accolades. But what he does have is being responsible for the greatest play in the history of the Philadelphia Eagles. Strip sacking the GOAT Tom Brady, Michigan man on Michigan man. If you're going to beat a Michigan man, it's got to be another Michigan man. And that's what Brandon Graham did. Sealed the deal for the Philadelphia Eagles and winning a Super Bowl and giving this city something that they thought they'd never see. Um, just a quick story. My great uncle Ed is the reason I'm an Eagles fan. I didn't actually start out as an Eagles fan. My dad's not an Eagles fan, so you know I you know you resonate with your dad and you know because you look up to your dad, you kind of emulate the things that he does and the things that he likes. And I wasn't an Eagles fan to start out, but I was watching a game. Uh, it was the 2000 playoffs between the Eagles and Buccaneers. And my great uncle Ed was a Eucharistic minister. He was a very reserved guy, and when he would get excited is when he was watching the Eagles, and to see the excitement on his face as the Eagles beat the Buccaneers in that playoff game, it's like I want to be a part of that. Like I'm sorry, Dad. Like I want to, like it's my birthright to be an Eagles fan. Like I know you didn't like Buddy Ryan, and that's why you're not a fan, and and he rubbed you the wrong way, but um, I got to be a part of this. And ever since that day, I've been an Eagles fan. And you know, he unfortunately passed away in 2018 in December. And before he went out, he got to see a Super Bowl. And Brandon Graham is responsible for that. And Brandon Graham and I know there's other people that have stories like I have and what it means to be an Eagles fan. Brandon Graham gave us that. And you know, I will never forget that. And he may not make an NFL Hall of Fame, and he hasn't made a lot of Pro Bowls, but he is synonymous for the greatest play in Eagles history. And for that, I salute you. I mean, you want to talk about a journey. I mean, you would think, right, that as a Michigan fan, that I loved when we drafted him. I did not. Like, I wanted Earl Thomas in 2010. And, you know, a lot of people were not a huge fan of that pick at that time because if you remember coming out of Michigan, he was a 3-4 outside backer being drafted by a team that runs a 4-3 defense. And you're thinking like, well, we just got an undersized guy when we could have got the replacement to Brian Dawkins when we already had a guy like Trent Cole. And this is the Eagles nerd in me, but I know they signed Darryl Tapp early on in the season. I don't even know if people remember that. So they already put resources in that D line position. So people were kind of like questioning that pick, um, you know, for a variety of different reasons. And it took him a while. It took him a while to get settled and play at a high level and play at a consistent level. I mean, he seemed a bit overmatched given his lack of size. But what the one thing about Brandon Graham that you cannot deny is his motor and his trash talk. And he has a mentality that has driven him to overcome so much. And it took him a while. Um, you know, it's funny. He actually, because, you know, how many times did that dude had to hear, should have took Earl Thomas, should have drafted Earl Thomas. We didn't need Brandon Graham. Brandon Graham's an undersized defensive end or outside backer playing defensive end. It was a dumb pick. He had to hear that, you know, for as long, you know, for as long as he did. I was at like, and I said things on Twitter like to that effect, and he blocked me on Twitter, and you know, luckily for me, he did unblock me after the Super Bowl. I felt so good because you know I always had a soft spot for him being a Michigan man, but you know. You take the Michigan hat off and you think of like, you know, as a general manager, what was the logical pick to make? It was Earl Thomas at the time. And but he just kept chucking along, man. He kept chucking along, and his motor, his desire, his relentlessness. I mean, he deserved to be the one responsible for the greatest play in Eagles history. Like he deserved to be that guy, and he did everything that the team wanted him to do. He had been the guy that a lot of players looked up to, and he's awesome, man. And to see what he's made of himself, as an Eagle, and what he's meant to the city. No one's ever going to forget that guy. No one's going to forget a guy that's going to be jawing in your face, talking all that trash, and just the relentless desire to get to the quarterback. I mean, if you watch that Super Bowl, I mean, that was a flag football game for the majority of the game. I mean, there was no defense played in that Super Bowl till Brandon Graham, who and what I find very interesting about Brandon Graham is, he was an undersized outside linebacker to a 4-3 end. Well, if you remember in that Super Bowl and you saw last night and you've seen throughout his career, he'll line up, at the three tech. And when he got the strip sack on Brady, that's exactly where he was. So this relentless desire to not only contribute but to be great led him to that moment. And it's sad because I shouldn't say it's sad because it's he went out in the shield last night. Brandon Graham went out in a Brandon Graham fashion, talking shit in your face. He sees your weakness, he's going to attack you, and he's going to be in your face about it. And that's exactly what he did last night. And there's been a lot of talk about, oh, could he come back? He's playing at such a high level. We could use him, going forward. I mean, if it's not broke, why try and fix it? But the truth is, the injuries have to, play a role, and they've played a role, and I think this is a bridge too far for him. I mean, he's got nothing left to prove. He's synonymous with the greatest play in Eagles history, and he fucking went out on his shield. And hmm, I'm almost getting emotional thinking about it because of what he means to me and what he means to the city. But just an incredible story. BG, if this is it, thank you, my guy. Hmm, thanks. You will never be forgotten in the city of Philadelphia. You will always be an Eagle. You will always be a Michigan man. And it was an honor and a pleasure and a joy to watch you play and to watch you overcome what you overcame, and to see you play the way that you played, just, nonstop, in your face, relentless, doing whatever you could to help this team. And it rubbed off on a lot of guys. And you were a phenomenal leader. You're a phenomenal person. Brandon Graham is my girlfriend's favorite player, and you're a lot of people's favorite player. And you will always be remembered as one of the greatest Eagles of all time. He probably won't get Hall of Fame votes. You don't see a lot of Pro Bowls on his resume, but what you do see is a guy who was responsible for the greatest play in Eagles history. And it was an honor to watch you grow and to see what you meant to the city. And you've given myself, you gave my great uncle Ed, you've given so many Eagles fans, something that they thought they'd never see, and that's a Super Bowl ring. And thanks. Thanks. Sorry. Uh, when you're a diehard Eagles fan like I am, and you see a guy go out in a shield like that, thanks. Thank you. So that pretty much, I'm sorry I had to get emotional, but this team means a lot to me, and he meant a lot to me. So that's gonna cover the Eagles. Obviously, I got a big game in Baltimore. Going to be very interesting. Lamar, he's got a ridiculous record against the NFC, and if you don't have tape on him, he's pretty much hard to stop. Obviously Derrick Henry, the second best running back in football. Still great. King Henry's phenomenal. I love watching him play. That's going to be a tough matchup. That's a heavyweight fight. If there is one, it's going to be interesting. Um, I definitely think we can win. It wouldn't shock me, if we lost because, they're a really good team, and with the division, being up for grabs, I feel like there's gonna be a sense of urgency with that team. Losing to the Steelers, but the Steelers also losing, knowing that they got to gain ground and they can gain ground. It could be one of those games we might lose, but because I don't know if this winning streak's gonna last. I mean, it is the NFL, and it is on the road. Um, I think if they are going to lose, it's probably going to be this game. But given the way that the Eagles are playing, um, the Ravens secondary is not great, and if we get Devontae Smith back, um, that could be a problem for them. But it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a great game. It's a heavyweight fight if there is one. So I'll be looking forward to that. Now let's talk about the Flyers. Let's talk about Mitch Mania, baby, because he does it again. And he's not only a guy who has been productive in his rookie year, but he's clutch and he wants to smoke. And he is a guy that, is one to make plays in the biggest moments and to close the show. And this is a message for the Philadelphia Flyers. This is a message for Jonesy. This is a message for Danny Briere. Do not screw this up. Your job whenever you wake up in the morning, whether you're Briere or Jonesy, you should be thinking, what am I doing today to make sure that Matvei Michkov has everything at his disposal to work with? I talked about on the last podcast, how him and Konechny, though they're very good and though they're guys you want on your team, it's not going to be enough, and it's going to be hard to not deal or to deal with minimal cap space. Make cap space. Do what you have to do. Don't sit there and be like, well, we got our guy now, and it's just, hopefully these young guys that we draft can play with him, and it's going to be the youth movement. No, if you can get talent to go along with Matvei Mitchell, do it. If you don't have cap space, make cap space. If it's absolutely impossible and out of the question to create cap space because of the bad contracts you have, then you do your due diligence to look at guys on the cheap who can fit well with that guy. You study what can work with Matvei Michkov. And the focus and the priority going forward is to make sure that guy has everything at his disposal. Because I'm telling you this right now, if you treat him like you treated him like you treated Claude Giroux and did not see a guy with his talent and his playmaking ability to go out there and find the talent that he had that he needed to work with, it's going to be very hard for me to forgive you guys because you have something special in this kid. He's not only productive, but he's also a guy who can be clutch and get that team over the hump. It is the job of the front office to make sure that Matvei Michkov has what he needs. Players, coaching, everything. This guy is your golden goose. He is your golden ticket. Do not treat him like you treated Claude Giroux. Don't have him waste away like Claude Giroux wasted away within this organization. You make sure that you have everything, that kid has everything at his disposal, whether it's talent or coaching, because you have something special in that kid. Not just a guy who can score goals and can look good on tape or look good on reels that people post. He's clutch. He wants to be that guy in big moments. Get him everything that he needs. You don't have space, get cap space. And if it's impossible to get cap space, you find guys that will work with him to the Philadelphia Flyers. Don't waste the greatness that is Michkov Mania. So before I get to the Sixers, I want to let you guys know about our sponsor, Decals by Aaron. I know a lot of people that watch this show, and a lot of people associated with the show. Jesse Bell, the founder of Old City Sports, is a Delco guy, as you already know. If you are like Jesse and you love Delco and are very proud of Delco. I date a girl from Delco. They are very proud of where they're from. If you want to show off how proud you are of Delco, you want to go to Decals by Aaron and pick up your Delco gear there to rep with pride. So you can either go to decalsbyaaron.com or you can go to facebook.com/decalsbyaaron to get all your Delco merchandise. If you're one that loves Delco, and I've seen it, man, I see a lot of Delco people proud to. So you want to be that guy that wants to show your true Delco colors and your pride. Decals by Aaron is your is the place to go for that. So tell them that Frank sent you. So let's talk about the Sixers. I'm not going to talk too much about this team. I'm going to be brief about this. I didn't watch the last two games, to be honest with you. I had a Christmas party for work. Obviously yesterday there was the Eagles. I was at a Thanksgiving party with my girlfriend's family, so I didn't really catch any of the games, to be honest with you. Friday I did see some of the highlights of Jared McCain, which is good to see. But Joel didn't play in that game, and he didn't play in this game, and they got blown out by the Clippers, and the fans at Wells Fargo were not happy. The Chickens certainly came home to roost as they got booed for going 3-13, just showing no fight. What did I tell you? What did I tell you? Patience is wearing thin with Sixers fans, and you would think after, excuse me, you would think after Joel, had that 35-point game and everything that was said in the team meeting, you would think he would ramp up his recovery and he would try to, come back. And he clearly hasn't. I think that's played a lot into the frustration. Paul George being out has played into that frustration as well. But when you lay an egg at home to an Clippers team, that's what you're gonna get. So yeah, that's pretty much it on that. I'm not surprised. I told you guys, Sixers fatigue in the city is a real thing, and when you don't lose, and you don't win, and you don't produce, and it's the same old bullshit, with Joel not getting on the court, uh, that's what you're gonna get, and they're sick and tired of it, and I don't blame them. So that's pretty much it on that team. Luckily for us, we do have the Philadelphia Eagles, who look like the best team in the NFL based off of talent, but the talent's performing and producing. Obviously, got a massive Baltimore Ravens game on Sunday. I'll be looking forward to that. And, with Saquon Barkley doing Saquon Barkley things, man, I'm just curious to see what he does next, because every single week it's a new thing, it's a new record, and he's been a pleasure to watch. So, luckily we have the Eagles. Who knows with the Flyers and Mitch Goff mania. Like I said, don't screw it up, guys. Don't screw it up, Jonesy and Briere. Find a way to make sure that guy has everything that he has. So, there are some good things despite the dreadful Philadelphia 76ers, who appear to hit rock bottom. So there's a lot of good things. Again, BG, thank you for everything. If this is it, it's been an honor to watch you play. Sorry for getting emotional, but this team means a lot to me. He means a lot to me for a variety of different reasons. So it's kind of personal, and yeah, I've said all I needed to say about that, and thank you, BJ. That's going to do it today. It's probably going to do it for the remainder of the week. Obviously, Thanksgiving is Thursday. Happy Thanksgiving to all those out there.